1961. The Soviet Union puts the first man in space. 1962. The US is still on the ground. 1969. An American walks on the moon. 8 years, 2 superpowers, one race that would change the world forever. When Yuri Gagarin orbited Earth in 1961, America woke to a terrifying reality. It was no longer the undisputed technological power of the planet. The Soviet Union had won the first battle of the space race, and the entire world watched. But what few know is that this moment of American humiliation was not the end of the story. It was the beginning. In the 8 years that followed, NASA would transform a setback into victory, sending 12 men to the moon while the USSR watched from afar. How did one nation go from defeated to conqueror in less than a decade? If you want to understand how technology, money, and determination can rewrite history, subscribe to the channel. We bring stories that show the moments that truly shaped our world. Let's continue. April 1961. While America slept, the Soviet Union did the impossible. It put a man in space. Yuri Gagarin orbited Earth in 108 minutes, and when he returned, he was a hero to the entire world. In the US, the reaction was pure shock. It was not just a technical victory, it was an ideological defeat. The nation that saw itself as a symbol of progress and innovation had been surpassed by its communist rival. American newspapers could not hide their panic. If the USSR could put a man in space, what else could it do? Nuclear missiles? Weapons America could not even imagine? The space race was not about scientific exploration. It was about power, about who would control the future. And in that moment, it seemed America had lost. American humiliation lasted only a few months. In May 1961, President John F. Kennedy stood before Congress with an impossible proposal: put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Kennedy knew America could not lose again. The Cold War was not just about nuclear weapons, it was about who would control the future. And at that moment, the USSR was winning. But Kennedy offered something the USSR did not have: unlimited resources and the determination of an entire nation. Congress approved billions of dollars for NASA. Engineers were recruited, factories were built, entire cities were created to house the scientists and technicians of the project. It was a national mobilization, as if the entire country was at war.
Kennedy's decision transformed NASA into an innovation machine without limits. Engineers, scientists, and technicians were recruited from universities, industries, and laboratories across the country. There was no time for theory, only time to solve problems no one had solved before. NASA engineers worked 16 hours a day, testing rockets that exploded, computers that failed, suits that did not work. Each failure was a lesson. Each death of an astronaut was a weight that pushed the agency forward. It was not heroism, it was obsession. America had promised to reach the moon, and that promise became the force that moved thousands of people for 8 years. While America built its innovation machine, the Soviet Union faced a problem the world could not see. The Soviet space program was collapsing. Gagarin's initial lead had created an illusion of superiority, but behind that victory lay disorganization, internal competition between rival agencies, and a lack of resources propaganda never revealed. Soviet rockets exploded, cosmonauts died, and accidents kept secret. Vladimir Komarov, an experienced cosmonaut, was sent into space in a rocket engineers knew was defective, and he did not return alive. No one in the West knew this. Meanwhile, America documented every test, every failure, every success. The USSR hid its disasters. And while it hid, it lost time, lost opportunities, lost the race. Years passed. America had won several smaller battles, satellites in orbit, animals in space, then men on increasingly longer flights. But none of that was the moon. In 1968, Apollo 8 orbited the moon with astronauts aboard. The USSR saw its dream slipping away. Now only one step remained, the landing. Apollo 11 was ready. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins had trained for years. Every procedure had been tested hundreds of times, but no one knew if it would work. There was no room for error. The tension was palpable. NASA engineers slept little. The entire world waited. And then, in July 1969, everything was ready.
July 20th, 1969. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin descended from the lunar module while Michael Collins orbited alone above them. The entire world watched. In the streets of American cities, people stopped what they were doing to see that moment. In the Soviet Union, the silence was deafening. Armstrong placed his foot on the moon and spoke words that would echo forever. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But those words did not capture what had truly happened. America had done the impossible. It had transformed defeat into victory. It had sent men to a place no one had touched, no one had breathed, no one had walked, and it had brought them back. While Armstrong and Aldrin collected lunar rocks and planted an American flag, the USSR watched from afar, knowing it had lost not just a race, but an entire era. The moon now belonged to America. America's victory on the moon marked the end of an era. After 1969, the space race lost its purpose. There was no more competition. America had won, and the world knew it. The USSR continued sending cosmonauts, but without the same fervor. The Cold War would continue for 2 more decades, but that moment on the moon had decided something fundamental. Which system was superior? But victory brought a silent irony. After Americans conquered the moon, no one returned for 50 years. The rockets that cost billions were retired. Engineers dispersed. The innovation machine disappeared. The moon remained empty, a monument to an ambition that vanished as quickly as it had risen. America had won the race, but lost the reason to run. And perhaps that is the most important lesson. Victory does not always mean progress. Sometimes it only means the end of something that should never have ended. If stories that challenge what you thought about the past move you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, do you think the space race should have continued after 1969?